Fucking third time recording this shit. Alright, let's go. Jessica Purmers' debut short film, A Quiet Place, that's not it. The Sound of Silence. Nope. Jessica Purmers' debut short film, The Audition, is a horror film without any dialogue. The way Purmers pulls off a truly terrifying short in this way purely through visual storytelling as well as an incredibly intricate sound design is worthy of an essay all by itself, and we'll definitely touch on it, but for now I just want to focus on the actual horror of the film and what I think is actually going on in this incredibly metaphor-rich piece. So if you haven't seen it yet, pause this video and go give it a watch because there be spoilers ahead. And also, it's worth noting that the opinions in this video are strictly my own and just one viewer's subjective interpretation of a piece of art. Art is subjective, whoever would have guessed. From the outset of the film, we are greeted with an unsettling green color palette, as well as some ominous and eerie music, which is interesting because we're not actually in the horror yet. We're just watching a girl get into an elevator. In a regular horror film, the music at this point would be building anticipation, a high-pitched, discordant piano maybe. Take one of these films, for example. The openings are soft, the color palettes are warm and inviting. The music is calm and unnoteworthy. There's nothing special about it because there's nothing special about anything that's happening so far. The movies are trying to put us in a state of mind where we can experience the unfolding of the events of the film along with our main characters. Even though we know we've sat down to watch a horror film, these movies don't want us to feel afraid yet. So what the film is telling us subliminally is that the horror has already begun. And we'll circle back to this. Yeah, that's right, strap in, we're gonna be nitpicking a bunch. You'll also notice a lack of focus on our main character throughout this opening sequence, as well as the handheld camera shake lending to a feeling of missing control, which culminates when she steps out of the elevator. It's all Dutch angles and soft focus. In her notes on a scene video, Purmers says that this was to add a sense of disorientation for the viewer.
You might have also noticed the fluctuating focus. That's on purpose. I was really inspired by The Third Day, which is a show on HBO that I watched previously to shooting The Audition, and they did a similar thing. With the camera being so close to the character and the subject never being quite in focus, I was able to create this sense of disorientation while also being close to the character's emotions, so that you are literally in it with them.
And then suddenly, bam, we're hit with this overwhelming distortion effect. And being that we've already seen so much from our main character's point of view, and the camera has very much put us in her shoes, we feel that lack of control. And we know it's indicative of the main character's feelings as well. If we felt disoriented before, we now feel completely lost. We have let go of all semblance of control. I remember the first time I saw this scene, my legs started shaking. I felt genuinely nervous. And this was the first time in the short that I got the sense that this might not be a straightforward horror, where I didn't know how much of this was actually happening and how much was symbolic or maybe not actually happening at all. The DSM-5's positive symptoms for schizophrenia, positive meaning additive, not good, as in the addition of something not usually present in neurotypical cognition, as opposed to a negative symptom, which is an augmentation of a neurotypical or physiological symptom. For example, loss of interest in things someone once cared about. I am not a medical professional. None of this is advice or education. I'm just a pretentious shit with a camera. Anyway, positive symptoms include delusions, hallucinations, disorganized speech, and some others. The difference between delusions and hallucinations being that delusions are strongly held beliefs in things that definitely aren't happening, like being mind-controlled, and hallucinations are seeing or hearing things that definitely aren't there. In order to be diagnosed with schizophrenia, a person has to exhibit at least 2 of these 3 symptoms. I promise, this all comes together, just trust me. This hallway scene is the first time we see our protagonist experience a hallucination. Distorted visuals and sounds, reality warping, this distortion being present both in the character shots as well as in her POV. The film is telling us that this is what she's seeing. Yet, she goes on. The hallucination stops, she composes herself, and knocks on the door. The door is opened by a young man. Our main character waves silently in greeting. What follows is a series of awkward and creepy interactions between the two, our protagonist growing increasingly uncomfortable. the earlier focus shifting becoming more erratic, the music growing louder and more unsettling. You can almost hear whispering voices in it until finally, our climax. Following a series of locked-off and in-focus shots of the auditioner, we get a reverse shot of our protagonist. Her lips are sewn together, not with thread, but with a cross-hatched marker, the ink further lending to our confusion about what is and isn't real. Ink being a tool for representation, the words on a page in a novel or a sketch of a person or object that isn't there. Our protagonist doesn't even notice at first. Not until she tries to speak. Not until she tries to take agency, tries, and fails. The auditioner is still sitting there, just as he was before, smirking. This, I think, is our protagonist's first delusion. Quick sidebar. I don't like the "it was all in their head" trope. I like it even less as a fan theory, but goddamn if this isn't well done here. I have no idea if this is what Purmers intended here, but it's the takeaway I got. We're all in this together now. I think it's worth briefly discussing the Kulushov Effect here. Without getting into too much detail or history, the Kulushov Effect essentially states that two cuts next to each other allows the audience to infer much more than the sum of its parts. This is basically the foundation of editing. In this original clip of Kulushov demonstrating this effect, you can see how the man's blank expression is colored by the scenes it's being juxtaposed against. Here, the man looks hungry, then mournful, then horny. We infer meaning from the combination of the shots more than we do from the individual shots themselves. Dan Olson has an excellent video essay about this where he explains the idea in much more detail than I can, and I'll link that down below. But for now, suffice it to say that the reverse shot is worth everything. So when we get this reaction shot of the interviewer, exactly as composed as he was before, we not only get a picture of a person who is calm, we also get a picture of a person who was expecting this. I don't think this is an extra shot just added for creep factor. I think this is foreshadowing. If you'll indulge me, I'd like to insist that Purmers put this in here deliberately to let us infer that whatever this man is, he is in control. And we'll circle back to this too. Bear with me, it's all coming together, I promise you. Our protagonist runs out of the room, bolting for the elevator she came up in, the tension and suspense mounting, until a reverse shot, our only jump scare, of the auditioner in the elevator as the doors close. I can't help but feel this is an homage to The Shining, incidentally also a movie about people losing control of their psyches. At this point, we have already seen our main character experience a hallucination in the form of disorienting visuals and sounds that she experienced earlier in the hallway. And now I believe that we have seen our character experience a delusion, the cross-hatching on her mouth being the tip of the iceberg. I think this entire scene was on a level imagined. Even the auditioner, our antagonist over here, I think was a figment of her imagination, and I have evidence I will get there. You see, if this wasn't all enough, in our final scene, Purmers manages to work in a brilliant twist. Our protagonist goes back over the script she was auditioning for, and it describes everything that has happened as well as what's happening now, stating she was in the movie she was auditioning for the whole time. And she puts down the script, seemingly in resignation to her role. And goddamn if that doesn't check out. This explains why it felt like a horror movie before any horror was established. The film was telling us that we were already in it before we knew it. That this entire time we've been inside our main character's head. That we only saw a glimpse of what she experiences, but she experiences it all the time. And she may be stuck in this movie because she's stuck in her mind. This whole thing, the entire short, just simply a delusion. Something that she believes is happening but isn't. And the script is our meta-commentary on that. Telling us that everything that's happened hasn't actually happened. Telling our main character that everything that's happened has happened in some movie, and telling us that everything that we've seen happen has happened in our head. That the whole time this was a movie, or a delusion, or a battle against her schizophrenia, one of the symptoms of which we mentioned before is the inability to form coherent sentences, thus the absence of dialogue in this film. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. This has been my first video essay, in fact, my first video overall. There's a few more of these that I want to make, some ideas that I have rattling around in my brain, so hopefully I'll get to those at some point, and hopefully they'll be a bit more coherent than this one and a bit less conspiracy theory-y. But thank you for watching anyway, and yeah, that's it.